Howdy. What's up, everybody? A happy solar eclipse, July 2nd. It's a little brief encounter with Saturn tonight. I don't have it for very long because it's about to hit the top of the window, but I got some clear skies for a little bit, figured I'd jump on. I watched the eclipse on the stream today. It was pretty crazy, pretty beautiful. What's up there, Happy Honey, Big Bear? Saturn is looking good. Yeah, I'll get a little closer, but I got this wide shot going. You can see Titan, the brightest of the moons, and then I think Rhea. I gotta double check on that. But definitely Titan. What's up, Super Must See? How you doing? Derek, Mary, I'm doing all right, thanks. A little tired, to be honest, but pretty damn good. Right on, so bottom left is Titan, and then Rhea, and then Dione. And then you got Hyperion and something else. And Eyepieces to the right. It's a little bit harder to see. You can very easily make out Titan, Rhea. So it was interesting, I was tracking the sun in Stellarium at the same time as watching the live stream, and you could see that the moon was very, very close, the new moon. It's almost as if you had a solar scope, you could really kind of maybe catch the limb of it from down here in Florida, but anyway, pretty amazing that so far in the last 5 years, I've seen two of them, one for real, one on TV. It was also really funny. I was watching the one on the Space Videos and live from Chile broadcast, and right at totality, or right after the totality, somebody kicked the stand or like the tripod. You could see it like kind of got readjusted, or somebody was kind of messing with it. You could tell. Really funny. For those who haven't seen it, a couple of years back there was the solar eclipse, and down here it was 81%. It didn't get to totality, but I got to stream the whole thing, and it was a really incredible experience, but even more so because there were all these things that went right during the stream. Like the whole stream went on for 4 hours. It never broke down, even though it was like probably the most, whoa, that was an airplane going by, crazy. Coming up on your screen in a second. So yeah, like the stream stayed up, the camera didn't overheat, like nothing happened to the scope, didn't wiggle or anything, and yeah, that stream went really well. So I've always felt like, but since then I felt like solar eclipses could be whatever you want them to be. Sometimes they open a gateway to something great. And then today there was some madness around the world. switched it up to the 3x magnifier. So this is the Sony, the 3x Televue into the CPC 11. Definitely got some heat aberration going on, some turbulence. It's looking all right. Outer division separation and inner rings looking really good. What up there, Andrew Johnson? How you doing? Track I was working on today, brand new stuff. That was a little taste of something new. Bit real rough. Those are all first guitar passes, but just trying to do something interesting and different. No title even. And yeah, just sitting chilling here with y'all. A little bit tired, to be honest, so I'm a little bit quiet, but yeah, good day today. New moon. July is going to be good. Another quick opportunity to mention Electric Universe. If anyone is interested, go check out their new video based on, especially, I think they probably put it out because of the solar eclipse. It's all about the sun's surface, and it's Donald Scott's electric sun model. And further than that, there's also another good channel, is Sky Scholar. Pierre-Marie Robitaille has his own kind of idea of a liquid metallic sun, which could possibly merge together with Donald Scott's electric sun theory. Time to move space weather forward. I also stumbled across a pretty cool video this week. Interesting stuff considering we're looking at Saturn. I'm gonna paste it in. This is from Greg J's channel, where he reads a lot of the proto-Saturnian myths. And he references this guy named John Cook, J-N-O Cook, who's put together this documentary a couple years back on discovering lost civilizations and kind of piecing together the timeline of the Earth up until now, kind of, I guess, the last 12,000 years from the context of, let's say, plasma cosmology is completely real, which I think it is. But if you really apply that to Earth and kind of historical events, you'll see this really interesting story emerge as to how the mythic archetypes and the stories that were handed down kind of reappear in different circumstances. It's a lot like remembering the end of the world, thunderbolts of the gods, symbols of the gods, symbols of an alien sky, right? The David Talbot documentary. but John Cook puts together a really interesting view as well. So I dropped in that link. Greg J references it, and then you can only find the John Cook thing as well. Super must see, had a most amazing week. Hell yeah, that's awesome to hear. It's good to hear. I like when people have good times. That's what we need to spread more of. Better sequential great moments for everybody. Alright, dropping this link in here real quick. So this is actually, I think, John Cook talking about this piece he wrote called Recovering the Lost World. It's an eccentric guy, but I think it's a worthwhile piece of content. So shout outs to a couple of other Electric Universe channels. See the Pattern, Electric Universe Eyes, the Electric View, of course Greg J. Who else? Of course Thunderbolts Project. I think I checked back on Too Tough 2, Billy Elberton's channel. It seems like something happened and he stopped posting. Like last clip was like from 3 years ago. Other interesting stuff I've been watching in terms of space weather is obviously a little bit of Suspicious Observers, Ben Davidson stuff. Of course, Eugene Bagachov's videos on Thunderbolts. But I think also there's a lot of room to make sense of it all for yourself, move things forward. I've been realizing this whole concept of how like only a very small subset of people actually create all the content on Earth, and the rest really are consumers. And not in a bad way, just in a systemic way. So I feel like it's really, if you're able to make art and create it, then you're one of the few. And maybe you have more power than you think. Yeah, so as I was watching a bunch of these Saturn videos and really kind of the history of Earth based on plasma cosmology, you start to realize that there are much more fundamental things that make me and others think that the universe is interconnected electrically. For one, really, like you have static electricity, something we can see and measure that's coming off of, this just charge fields, so fields really exist at the cellular level, and they kind of go symmetrically outwards and inwards almost forever. And so there's this concept where mankind has this bicameral mind, I feel like a split consciousness that needs this answer or needs these definitions, and so people cling to theories very stringently in ways that almost are emotional because they really feel the need to know the answer to things. But I feel like there might be a way, if everybody figured out a way to make things more palatable, really through marketing better. I feel like a lot of the Electric Universe stuff is marketed quite poorly, which is partially why it's so underground. I find it's really difficult also to brand TakeBackSpace Electric Universe stuff too, because I don't want to be pigeonholed in terms of even my own kind of theories. I just want to be able to think freely. But I really think that Thunderbolts really needs creative editing and more exposure, just so that we have the opportunity to have the debate, at least on the public level. Thanks for hanging out, y'all, whoever's in the chat room. It's a really slow chat tonight, or else I'm missing out on a whole bunch of conversation. Maybe it's just Monday and everybody's pooped. I'm rather pooped, but so much is on my mind, especially watching the whole space thing today and seeing this, really just how few people were interested in the solar eclipse around me. And such a tiny, tiny fraction of people who really take this stuff seriously. But it seems to be the most important thing. Once you get the larger view, everything fits. Happy Honey says, I would agree with that. I think if Tycho Brahe or Nikolai Tesla were alive today, they'd be on board with plasma cosmology. I think they'd be pushing things way further. I think Tesla and the whole scalar wave stuff is just so fascinating. Another link or reference, if y'all want to look it up, is Eric P. Dollard. I found him through Theoria Apophysis. The Angry Photographer talked about Eric P. Dollard a lot, and then I finally listened to him, and he talks about the whole historical arc of Tesla, Steinmetz, Heaviside, and the kind of rise of people who are really talking very directly, pun not intended, about current and electricity and our place in it, and there was philosophical discussion as well. So we've really lost sight, I think, in contemporary cosmology, which is just read these articles and they keep inventing ad hoc theories to support theories that are already disproven. And it's really just a sad state of affairs, but here to change it a little bit. What's up, Eric Jurgensen says, ever heard of concave Earth? I certainly have. Did a lot of looking into concave Earth. But for some reason, it still makes more sense that we're kind of onion-shelled or concentric shells outwards and inwards versus, being on the inside of a shell looking inwards at the central sun. But I could be wrong. We could be, concave Earth could be actually just that we're on the outer shell looking inwards at our sun, but that's our solar system in a way. So I don't know if we're on the inside of planet Earth. I feel like we're on the outside of planet Earth. but in concentric shells that interact with other shells, like planetary bodies, smaller bodies. All of us have the same type of heart oscillator, which is when you're born on a filament, let's say, the umbilical cord or the Birkeland current. And then your heart starts oscillating, and it creates these onion-skinned, like magnetic resonance layers that you carry with you throughout your life. And that's the same thing with humans, cells, microorganisms, planetary bodies, solar systems have these concentric shells like onion skins. And so I feel like even though concave Earth is very compelling, it seems more so that we're on the outside of Earth. Rick Danger says it's Tuesday. Yeah, it is. I know. I just happen to be always watching, always looking up. And if I have the opportunity, I will stream. Eric Jurgensen says, check out Dan Winter. He talks about how when you die, your DNA downloads memories into the ether. Yeah, I mean, I think there's evidence to prove that. So, like I was saying, there's a heart oscillator, and every memory, every interaction that this heart, or this seed, or the soul, or the initial pulse, or the pulsar, the quasar, the black hole, or the plasmoid, or any number of things that are referred to as the central node, where consciousness basically is extracted from either a different dimension or from the background consciousness and is manifest in the ether and held together via counter space or dark matter. And then you have, actually, I need to chill this music out for a second because I can barely think. All right, much chiller music. Yeah. So when you die, this idea of your whole life flashing before you is in essence these onion skin layers, these shells that have stored all your magnetic resonance imaging of your life, all these experiences, so you never really lose a thought or an interaction. It just gets further and further away from you as you age. And what happens is, it's like, you've heard of sphere of influence, for example. So you're radiating not just an aura, but you're radiating a bubble of energy that is like 6 feet away from you, and some people have it like 30 feet away from them. They just did it in this Amazon series, that Heaven and Hell thing, the Terry Pratchett reinterpretation, and they show, the Antichrist, and that he has his aura, and it encompasses the entire Great Britain area and around it. And so you see that there's always reference to it in our culture, which is the fact that things carry a magnetic field at, like, what is it, heliopause? Like a magnetopause. And essentially interactions between planetary bodies, stars, asteroids, meteors, comets, and space debris, and people and cells, and all of that are basically the same type of interaction between these transverse waves that, if you look at them on the side, they're 2D waves like on the top of water. But in fact, in 3D, there's spheres interacting at different levels, so if you're sitting in a group, everybody's got their spheres of influence, these layered memories and experiences up until their age and everything they've ever experienced. For reference to this is Eileen McCusick talks about biofield tuning and how she's figured out this field, and this all lines up with New Age healing and also the understanding of the human chakras and the alignment of the energy fields. And so I feel like that's sort of at the core of this electrical interaction, is that things are electric at the core, and they're pumped out from this central thing, and it creates these layers, and eventually, so when your life ends, these bubbles collapse on themselves, which is how you see everything. Or like that idea of moving towards a point of light. It's really the energy kind of collapsing on itself. It's the discharge plasma that happens, and they have laboratory experiments that show this. And so that's really that whole blue energy that leaves the body when you die. It's that measured substance, what people call the soul. So really, it kind of, in a way, very crudely answers what happens after you die in a very realistic, physical way. So what happens after you die is you lose human form. And what is human form? It's a type of density, which is manifest as fractal reality. So it's either envisioned or it's actually made out of carbon, if you believe carbon is a real quote-unquote thing. Concave Earth looks like a flaming ball from the outside. Well, that whole idea of a flaming ball is a little bit like old school mythos, you know, because as you can see what I was referencing earlier with the sun, if you look at the really new pictures of the sun and the video and get a solar scope, you can see that it's really not fire. It's not fiery at all. It's really these plasma filaments along different field currents interacting in really interesting ways that can be measured. But we have this old school idea of fire and brimstone and that concept, and it's drilled into our heads through media. And so this idea that there's a flaming Earth or a flaming asteroid or a flaming sun is just like really not correct physically, according to all the discoveries. So it's this different kind of inductive heat that is interaction between magnetospheres and atmospheres and ionospheres, so electrical shells interacting, creating all these sorts of plasma currents. And you know, I'm really just making up a bunch of words that I think work visually to kind of describe this, but in my mind it just looks like these, all these bubbles with different layers in them interacting with each other, and some of them pop and some of them don't. I don't know if that was like a little flash, or maybe that was a hot pixel. But anyway, concave Earth, like I said, lots of really great, interesting rabbit holes like the Libyan glass stuff, but that can be explained with high voltage electric discharge from space, which could transmogrify elements, transmutate elements from carbon-based silica, and you could have all Libyan glass based on like an electric plasma event. Same thing with the salt flats, same thing with all the mountains and stuff, all the flat earth stuff that talks about like flat mountains, and I mean the works in terms of geology can be explained very coherently with electric universe, which, you know, it's just up to people to look at it and just see that that's really what's going on. It's that fractal Lichtenberg patterns throughout. Oh, so concave Earth in terms of going inside Earth at the poles is different, I think, in my opinion. That is a completely different thing. Like this idea that the Nazis found holes, like the Operation High Jump and Admiral Byrd and all that stuff, I think that is possible. It's not very deep. It doesn't have to go very deep into the Earth's core. In fact, I actually believe again, I need to really measure my words, but the evidence really shows for these kind of plasma bubbles that they grow around a shell. So, you know, we always hear this idea that 99% of the universe is empty, it's only 1% mass. Same thing with the body, same thing with the brain, same thing with cells. So really we're just we're basically hollow, you know, and it would make sense that all planetary bodies to some degree are hollow. Stars and magnetic fields are generated based on where the planets are in the dielectric medium or the ether, or where they're moving, I guess, because they move along currents and pathways. I guess there's also kind of aberrant, what I guess they call the solar wind, is just this very charged stream of charged particles, which is affecting everything in all these really interesting ways. There's nothing really that you can actually put limits on, and the way, you know, astrophysics is talked about, they have all these limits and rules and measurements, and Alan Watts really said it really well once. He talked about, he's like, it's like man has placed all these measurements on reality, but in fact, you know, no piece of wood actually contains inches. You know, show up at work one day and be like, sorry, mister, can't build you the house, we've run out of inches. He's like, what do you mean we've run out of, yeah, no inches, can't build the house. And I'm probably butchering it, but it just means like this arbitrary rule set that mankind, an elite group of people, have placed upon what is clearly much more, not just random, but interesting and varied and undefinable in a lot of ways, and ageless in a lot of ways, now has all these definitions and rules and limits. And people are so tied to some people, not everybody. Yeah, so I was saying, it's not like hollow Earth theory. Yeah, that's even further. That's even a different thing as well. So it's Nazi hollow Earth, not concave Earth. Nazi hollow Earth, where they went to the poles and found underground bases or built underground bases. But I think it's not just them. It must have been kind of every government to some degree. Every rich person would try and go underground because there's this threat of the giant meteor or asteroid, or Nibiru, whatever you believe in. There's this threat from space, which is part of the PTSD that people all believe in, and they want to go underground or hide in caves. So I feel like anybody rich has probably built a cave or an underground bunker at this point. So Hitler would have done the same shit. But beyond that, then you have concave Earth, which is that we live on the surface of the inside of a hollow planet, looking at the center sun, with all the planets are much smaller, and they're within 8,000 miles of us. And I looked into it, I thought it was very interesting for a while, and then I realized that, like I said, it's like we see in our reality, unless everything is inside out, which it definitely could be. But in terms of how we optically see things, it looks like shells, inside shells, outside shells, that kind of inner-outer shell thing that we're looking at right now with Saturn even. Saturn is basically collapsed shells are the rings. So it had these much wider shells, and the center was probably much smaller. And we lived inside that, maybe on Earth and Mars, inside the plasma sheath of this brown dwarf that we're looking at. And it's still in the process of expelling, or it still has its outer sheath that has now collapsed down into these very tiny, tiny water particles. And that's where we get the oceans on Earth, where it's possible that Earth expanded because it was much smaller, and from this massive catastrophe, Earth had to, Pangea as we see it, wasn't really inside in oceans. It was literally completely a rocky planet, and then it exploded. I mean, there are all these really fascinating theories that are worth debating. Yo, 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 I knew the regs would show up. What's up, Ellie Wynn? Good to see you. What's up, Lost Brooklyn? I've just been going down the rabbit hole here with some Proto-Saturnian philosophizing and some electric universe evangelizing. I always am so wary to evangelize any type of science or any type of theory as if it's the gospel or anything like truth with a capital T. But yeah, it's a much more interesting and holistic and empowering pun unavoidable when it comes to light or power references. Very empowering science, and it'll wake, every 1 in 10 people will get it. But it's like the great artists. It's like Jeff Buckley, for example. There are people who don't know Jeff Buckley, and there are people who know that he's the greatest ever, or one of the greatest ever for people. And it's fine if he stays underground and just percolates forever, and you don't need 1 million people to recognize genius. Yeah, so Elon Musk, Eric Jorgensen says, Elon Musk, joking, said he supports the Concave Earth Society. So I think all people in media who have any type of access to that have a very clear sense of the fact that this type of technology, this very advanced technology, is already being used, and the promotional campaign is to dumb it down as much as possible for the public, because people don't want that. People just want, reality TV and social media, etc. Which is true, people do want that, but people also want facts and open science. And I think if you start to realize, you look into a little bit of how Thunderbolt's project approaches topics, even though they're not as thorough even as I'd like in certain instances, the way they talk to people in their videos is very humble, and it's very interesting to hear people who are very smart talk to you like you're very smart. It's very different, and that's why a lot of people, you kind of see the same kind of comments under the Electric Universe videos, or in general for all the channels I mentioned, this kind of thing where like, I can't stand listening to contemporary scientists, pop scientists, talk about stuff like Neil deGrasse and blah, blah, blah. And that's been going on for like 5-6 years now. And eventually people will catch on because people don't want to be talked down to. And people are investing a lot of money in taxes and living here, and we have a lot more power if we are critical thinkers. So I try and spend a little bit of time, as much time as I possibly can dedicate to sharing, again, like my regulars know this, and anybody who's new stumbling across this video will see that it's just about sharing real images of space and talking about all sorts of theories without being rude or bullying or belittling, and allowing for everything to be, just be. Yo, what up? ALS, Astronomy Livestream, good to see you, bud. How's your weather in the Dorado? Colo Dorado. Ellie Wins has left Jeff Buckley. Hell yeah, Ellie. Now you got that taste. Sorry, I don't mean to judge. Sorry, I'm really judgy about Jeff Buckley, but like, it's so fascinating. But it's that joy, like when somebody who hasn't heard of Jeff Buckley, and then you introduce them to it, and they have their discovery. I feel like, again, Electric Universe has that pattern. Not with everybody, but with some. Oh, right, yeah, so I was saying all the people in power want people to believe in UFOs, flat Earth, concave Earth, anything but plasma science, anything but filaments, anything but not sublimating ice on comets, anything but electric sun, anything. UFOs, Nazis on dinosaurs, reenactments of everything, I mean, racism, you name it. Just never talk about Electric Universe, never mention that there's Velikovsky, and then actively change Google searches by introducing companies that override history. So now when you search for Tesla, you get cars, you get Elon Musk, and you stop getting articles about Tesla. And really, like, then people die off, generations die off, and then the new generation doesn't look, and they don't have any reference to it. So it's about really delivering on the chain of information. So unless, yeah, I mean, that's really what everybody can partake in, is just passing on correct or more interesting or more novel or, I don't know, whatever type of information, be a little bit of a teacher in your circle, in your sphere. Eric Jurgensen says UFOs are plasma beings. So I'll keep going on that tip. So plasma beings, again, this necessity to have aliens is something derivative of ancient culture of having a savior of some sort or having deities of some sort. So the interaction between this idea that there were gods anthropomorphizing weather patterns is not completely wrong. I'm not denouncing it or making fun of it. I'm just saying that there's this idea that there are avian blue aliens, and there are the grays, and then there are the 30,000 those guys who seeded Earth, and then all these ideas are great and fine and fantastical, but the evidence we really do have are people just like you and me who were looking up at the sky and carved out writings and drawings about this at a certain period in time, which is in the last 5,000 years. And it gives rise to so many possibilities of answering big questions about the dinosaurs, about the Bible, about the flood, about where the gods came from, where the archetypal symbols came from. It explains where potentially the geological formations came from. Like, massive questions get answered very quickly when looking at it through an Electric Universe lens. So they could be aliens, they could be us. I think we're plasma beings to some degree. Sonoluminescence, I think, is also interesting. I mean, not just interesting, like a massive area of study that would be amazing to see in popular science. Much prefer at this point, instead of getting reports from the Hadron Collider, to see massive laboratories do like incredible sonoluminescent experiments, or plasma discharge, creating models of the sun, or creating accretion, or like disproving accretion disk models. So this whole idea that we live in this gravitational universe, planets explode, accrete all this matter, and this matter orbits, creates rings, and then coalesces into planetary bodies, has never been proven. And yet we still live in this universe, in this world, on Earth, somehow inside Earth, outside Earth, where we still have to talk about accretion disk mentality and black holes, these things that don't really have physical representation in our like material reality. Anyway, I've gone on, and now there are 19 people, and I've lost sight of Saturn, so what shall I do? Maybe I'll pull up some stars. Yeah, so the diabolical stuff, yeah, like Elon Musk will tell you anything, just do not talk about electric universe. Anything. Joe Rogan will have everybody on but an electric universe guy. What's his name? Tony, whatever his name, from Deep Something Astronomy, will never talk about electric universe. Michio Kaku, never talk about electric universe. Neil deGrasse, never talk about electric universe. They don't even mention it. It's not even like a whiff, like a hint in the room when they talk about science, Einstein, any of these things. And they'll talk about aliens. They'll even have slideshows that have Star Wars. Like I was watching, I know the image is gone, but whatever. I'm talking about Carolyn Porco from NASA. This awesome lady who's running the Saturnian missions, and she has, what, like 3 to 5 slides that are Star Trek references in a presentation on like literally being at Saturn. I mean, infuriating is not even the word, you know, you just get to this point where you're like, it must be this joke where it's to throw people, discerning eyes off the target. So that's sort of what I think. It's almost not even nefarious. It's just like, who cares? Society is dumb. People are dumb. People are evil. So why share anything important with them? I feel that's the kind of policy that we live in right now. But in fact, I would bet that most technologies that have actually gotten into space have probably used plasma ion technologies and scalar wave technologies. If I bet my bottom dollar, it would be that stuff. And then in the public sphere, it's just talked about as this antiquated stuff, so no one really thinks about it. And still, even if I say it, no one's going to think about it anyway. But that's not the point. The point is to just be good to each other and think critically. Alright, just switch it up to a star. You got my windowsill and 2 power lines cutting through it, but it's an interesting shot for a few more minutes while I close out the show. Sue Hill, thank you. I appreciate it. Just close out here with a couple more thoughts and a bit of a recap. Astronomy Livestream says, you know, if the Earth was flat, cats would have pushed everything off by now. That's a great segue, actually, to another one of my points about like the perception of mankind and like the evil of man, the evil that men do, the collective blame, the original sin, the concept that, you know, we're a cancer on Earth, or we're destroying Earth, quote unquote, or any number of these conceits where mankind as a whole, people use these very quips, these quick one-liners about how, yeah, if aliens showed up, they wouldn't want to be here because mankind is so stupid, and it's propagated through media, you know, this type of, it's very, I think these are the types of things that are most nefarious about the media, because they know that if they repeat things enough, it justifies it and makes it realizes it. And yeah, so this whole idea that we suck and, you know, planet Earth doesn't even want us, and we're abandoned by Mother Nature, and we're flung off into the Goldilocks zone, and it's a cosmological constant that keeps us alive, and it's these unbelievable statistical odds that we somehow exist in this somehow universe, and we shouldn't really even be here. And I'm going on, I'm droning on, but it feels like that. That's this wave of information of how shitty we are. Now, doesn't it beg the question as well that we're supposed to be here, that we're connected to Earth, that everything we do is totally natural, that there's room for greater causes, greater good, there's room to collectively create reality? I think that's just as valid as any of these notions that we have. And, you know, I'm not picking on you, David, necessarily. It's just an interesting kind of generational thing that we pass down, these tropes, cliches, and platitudes. Like my dad used to pat me, I know, oh, enough of that. I'm like, but let's talk about it. Nope, enough of that. And if he said it with enough vim and vigor and, you know, like quippily enough, then my mom would laugh, and he'd walk out the room, and it would end conversations. I think that like that's really what science is suffering from, especially with the rise of the pop scientist entertainers. These cats who just like make one-liners and reduce things to 1-minute science, 2-minute physics. Like, they yell at you, they have flash cuts, they make silly faces in their thumbnails, they use all caps, they use all these MOs of like people who are trying to sell you shit on the street, which is fine, but like there's a place for that, and there's a place for science, and there's a place for indoctrination, you know, and people really need to understand the difference, I think, in order to make better choices in life in general. Sorry, I kind of go off on my rant. I'm looking back at the channel. Secret to life is beef jerky. Could be. But those poor cows have had enough. They've had enough. I think it's interesting to look at like the rise of vegetarianism, veganism, and semi-veganism, semi-vegetarianism, just in 2 really interesting ways. One is that market consumers can affect large market changes with purchasing power. So whether or not you believe in gluten or gluten-free, anything, enough people basically started choosing to have gluten or not gluten. And so wheat in America and milk really in America has changed dramatically because of actual consumer power. So this is another great aspect of, you know, potentially not voting en masse or going out and marching for a unified cause, like with the same billboard and accurately protesting. Eric Jurgensen is talking about something that I'm trying to roll down. Yeah, the star is definitely not in focus. Just looking at some atmospheric turbulence going through, but what's really fascinating is that the camera Bayer matrix is actually picking up these refractive rainbow patterns, spectral patterns, and you kind of see, like, I'm not creating that, the camera's not creating the flickering, so really the scope is receiving this very intense frequency light, kind of, it's awash in light, and it's also creating spectral gradients, and you can also see atmospheric turbulence. So I find, you know, this defocused view of stars really interesting. Yeah, a lot of people have used images like this to prove that there's water, quote unquote, in space. But, you know, water is just a state of matter that has flow in it, and that flow can look like cymatics, it can look like fractals, it can look like electrical waves and patterns. So at the very core, even if it was water, which it's not water as we know it, I think, on Earth, then you'll still get similar types of ripples in waves. You can even see how the light is diffracting against the actual lens of the scope. You kind of see the concentric rings, and that could be due to the glass in the front of the scope. It could also be due to the way the light is actually being spread out. What's going on? Prow, let's go. Putak, mic PC. Oh, put AC mic PC. Okay, I don't know. Looks like a lava light, it says Sue. Yeah, I just had Saturn up for a little bit at the beginning of the video. I had a quick shot of it. Tonight is very humid, and I didn't have a shot of Jupiter. It's been rising way too early and there are clouds, but I've been really trying to get a nice shot of that. It's not happening, I don't think, for a bit. And today's the new moon. I checked out the eclipse earlier on stream, and really, it was great to be able to see it, and it kind of just put me in that mindset of a couple years ago when I streamed the other solar eclipse from down here. And just immediately after that went on to Thunderbolt's project and watched the whole Electric Sun thesis, and oh, that's really interesting. I feel like my audio just shifted. Plasma discharge. Yeah, what's up, Light Moon? I'm about to start closing down over here, just talking a little bit more. I was going into some theories because I was watching all these different videos. I'm going to list out a couple of the electric universe and people who are looking into plasma cosmology. Again, there's Greg J channel, there's See the Pattern, there's Electric Universe Eyes, there is the Electric View, which is cool. Of course, Thunderbolts, Sky Scholar, Stephen Crothers, and Pierre-Marie Robitaille. And yeah, that's. Then I was listening to this other cat, which I posted earlier, John Cook, talk about recovering our past, and he kind of has his own theories on how, if you really look at our historical events, he kind of pieced together just a more advanced version of symbols of the alien sky. Yeah, let me know what y'all think about if you saw the eclipse, the South American eclipse today on stream or in real life. Was it awesome for you? I thought it was pretty cool, even though it was on stream and I was working. I got to see the whole totality. And yeah, in 2017, I didn't actually get to see totality in real life because I was actually streaming, and down here it was only 81% occultation. But quick thing that I just remembered, lots of people think that this idea that Rahu, R-A-H-U, this black disk, is what goes over the sun during an eclipse. And I just want to dispel that myth, because I think that Rahu is just a different name for the new moon. And so there doesn't need to be another transient body to occult the sun besides the moon. And I've taken pictures of it. It definitely looked like the moon was occulting the sun. And when you see these pictures with new high-def cameras, it's certainly the moon surface that we recognize from all the streams and videos. So I hope that Rahu doesn't haunt you much longer. I think same thing with Nibiru and another Planet X, Planet 9. Any of these things could exist, certainly, but they probably don't. They're probably just misnomers, which are basically just, like for example, Saturn being Kronos, or possibly being Nibiru, and or Jupiter, and these events transpiring in skies a few thousand years ago where people understood references, anthropomorphized these planetary bodies, and actually created stories for us to learn from today. Eric Jurgensen says, what's interesting is that the sun has 8 Hertz sound waves on its surface, awfully close to the Schumann resonance. So it would beg the question as to whether even that is a steady resonance. You know, potentially like the Earth moving through a dielectric medium will change charge and or possibly expand, given these some of the plasma theories that everything is essentially expanding, but Earth is also expanding. But there are others that think it's just static. So it depends, but really I think, yeah, the Schumann resonance could be something that is just inherent or intrinsic to the resonance of this oscillation from the center of Earth. And that's how the planet hums from within. Other theories include, you know, the idea of reality being manifest of sound. And so possibly the Schumann resonance is what creates what we conceive as current reality. Do I like the 6500 camera? I think that's what you're asking. Yeah, I mean, it served me very well. It actually overheats a lot less than the A63, and I run it with an external battery pack, and it's just been very stable for a couple of years now, or about a year and a half now for all the streams. Camera tech is going to go absolutely nuts in like 5 years. There's just going to be this crazy signal to noise increase and then double the megapixels. It's not like megapixels are really the deal, but in certain aspects they are, especially if you can actually gather those points of data. So pictures will have better resolution, but more so they'll have less noise and better low light conditions. So astronomy will generally improve tremendously, I think. Same thing with mounts. Now that astronomy hobbyists are really like actively boosting the market share, you're going to get people creating mounts for consumer level, for the consumer level. And really, when you get into that deep sky stuff, like, it's pretty amazing. Low light cameras coupled with good mounts, and then you get to see all these different nebula, and like when auto stacking becomes a thing. I mean, it's already a thing, but. What up, Ashar Jade? Yeah, so let me know if y'all have any comments or questions about the electric universe stuff or anything I've been saying about anything at all. And or I'm gonna call it a night because I gotta get some rest. It's been a nice check-in, good hour stream. Definitely want to comment on some of the things and reference shout-outs to like the electric universe people who are trying to spread the good word of interconnectivity, interaction at a distance, you know, the reality of the fact that, you know, we are not just a mistake. And if you want to believe that, that's fine. But I think there's a reason we can see this crazy figure in the sky right here. It's just the insane donut, our plasma donut. Astronomy Livestream says I might get one tomorrow. Sony a6 V. Yeah, I mean, good deal, no matter what you do. All right, y'all. So thank you so much for listening to me ramble and rant. Thanks for hanging out on another space stream. I don't know, I'll try and stream maybe a Saturn or a Jupiter stream at some point, but maybe not. And if not, I will see y'all around the full moon. Have an excellent start to your, well, it's not even, it's midweek already. Damn. Enjoy the rest of your week. Ellie Wynn says, my plasma is not a mistake. It certainly is not. Insane plasma donut, Dapple Ben, hell yeah. Alright everybody, be good, be wise. See y'all soon.